The force most people dread isn't loud, dramatic, or openly hostile. It doesn't announce its presence with noise or declarations. Instead, it lurks in the shadows of silence, in the chill of indifference, in the unpredictability of a mind that refuses to be read. This is the kind of power that slips past defenses without warning, the type that claims victory before anyone even realizes a game was being played. While the majority stumble through life holding on to illusions that fairness prevails, that kindness earns safety, that abiding by rules ensures protection, sooner or later they are confronted with a jarring reality. One encounter with a person who is cold, deliberate, and unrestrained shatters those illusions completely. Such individuals don't wait for approval, don't bend to systems, and certainly don't live by the moral code the masses cling to. They write their own rules and win by them. Centuries ago, Niccolo Machiavelli dared to write what others were too fearful to even whisper. He didn't decorate his insights with moral softness. He didn't pretend the world was fair. Instead, he laid bare the raw truth about power, control, and survival. His words horrified many because they forced people to see the reality they desperately wanted to deny. But his work endured because it spoke to something undeniable. The world is not ruled by kindness, but by calculation. To understand this isn't to abandon morality, it's to awaken to the actual forces shaping your life. Because whether you embrace it or not, ruthless people exist, and more often than not, they are the ones climbing higher while the rest stay stuck. Here's the uncomfortable truth most refuse to face. The rules you've been told to obey weren't created for your benefit. They were engineered by those who already had power, designed to keep everyone else in line. The system punishes the weak for breaking boundaries while rewarding the powerful for rewriting them. The game the elite play isn't the game you've been taught, and they want to keep it that way. So the real question becomes, will you keep pretending the world is fair, or will you finally recognize the silent, ruthless strategies at work all around you? Think about this. You could be the most polite, agreeable, and respectful person in any room. You could follow every guideline, speak with kindness, and avoid conflict at all costs. But what often happens? People begin to treat your goodness not as strength, but as a weakness they can exploit. They push against your limits because they sense you won't push back. They interpret your patience as submission, your kindness as softness, your humility as a lack of power. For the ruthless, generosity isn't a virtue to admire, it's an opening to exploit. They view compassion not as strength, but as leverage, a signal that you can be bent without breaking. Machiavelli understood this better than most. Real strength is not loud, it is not violent, and it is not chaotic. It lies in establishing boundaries that cannot be crossed without consequence. True strength forces hesitation in others, making them think twice before daring to test you. Weakness, on the other hand, is marked by constant emotional outbursts, desperate appeals to fairness, and endless attempts to be liked. Strength, however, is silent, watchful, and strategic. It strikes with precision rather than noise, and it acts when the timing guarantees effectiveness. There's a principle I call the doormat effect. If you're too accommodating, too eager to please, you will not be respected more. You will be respected less. People begin to see you as someone without a spine, someone easy to step on. And once you're placed in that category, reversing that image becomes nearly impossible. It takes 10 times more effort to undo an impression of weakness than it does to prevent it in the first place. That's why the ruthless establish their reputations early. They don't wait to be pushed before drawing a line. They create an environment where disrespect is unthinkable, where consequences are understood without explanation. Perception, Machiavelli argued, often matters more than reality. People judge what they see, not what truly is. If you appear weak, you will be treated as weak. If you appear strong, you will be treated with caution. Most never see your inner reality. They only see the image you project. That's why ruthless individuals guard their appearance carefully. They cultivate an aura that ensures respect without needing to constantly fight for it. You don't need to abandon your humanity, but you must abandon the fantasy that the world rewards softness. In an environment filled with predators, Being a passive goldfish ensures one outcome: you get eaten. Think back to the last time someone disrespected you. Did you excuse their behavior? Did you tell yourself it wasn't worth making a scene? Did you convince yourself staying quiet made you the bigger person? That right there is weakness, not the act of being disrespected, but your willingness to accept it without consequence. Strength doesn't tolerate disrespect. It answers it immediately, calmly, but decisively. It sets the record straight in a way that leaves no room for confusion. Respect is not begged for, it is enforced. Now let's step into a higher state of power, a mental condition I'll call detached clarity. This is the state from which the most ruthless operate. It is cold, calm, and unmoved by the emotional turbulence that traps most people. In this mode, guilt loses its grip, fear has no influence, and the need for validation evaporates. You stop seeing the world as you wish it would be and begin seeing it exactly as it is. You act on logic, not emotion. You no longer seek to be labeled a good person. You act for outcomes, not approval. Most people can't enter this state because they are prisoners of their own emotions. They crave acceptance. They long for reassurance. They desperately need to be liked. And in that need lies their weakness, because the moment you require something from others, you hand them leverage over you. Ruthless people, on the other hand, sever that dependence. They don't ask for permission, they don't explain themselves, and they don't apologize for prioritizing their own path. This doesn't mean they feel nothing. It means they master their emotions instead of being mastered by them. Consider the surgeon operating on a critical patient. Their hands cannot shake. Their mind cannot drift. They cannot afford fear or pity to dictate their actions. They must be absolutely focused, detached from anything that doesn't serve the goal. That is detached clarity. Now imagine applying that to your life. How many decisions have you avoided out of fear of judgment? How many chances have you let slip because you didn't want to seem too aggressive or selfish? Every time you silenced your own interests to keep others comfortable, you handed away your power. Here's another truth Machiavelli whispered centuries ago: commitment dissolves difficulty. When you decide fully, obstacles shrink. But most people never decide fully. They hesitate. They want power, but they also want approval. They want success, but they want everyone to like them along the way. This divided desire destroys momentum. Detached clarity eliminates it. You choose what matters. You pursue it relentlessly, and everything else becomes irrelevant noise. To begin cultivating this state, stop over-explaining yourself. When you make a choice, own it. Don't justify it to those who aren't living your life. Let results do the talking. Next, learn emotional observation. When anger rises, don't lash out. Step back, analyze it, ask whether it serves your strategy. If it doesn't, let it pass. That is not suppression, it is mastery. Finally, stop binding yourself with shoulds. Who told you you should be nicer, should care more about other people's comfort, should play by invisible rules? Ask yourself whether those expectations empower you or chain you. And now, let's look at another secret of power: the art of invisibility. Most assume power is loud, flamboyant, and obvious. They think it's about commanding attention, being noticed, being in the spotlight. But that is not power. That is theater. Real power moves silently. It influences outcomes without fingerprints. It reshapes environments while others are still arguing about trivialities. True operators of power don't chase applause, they chase results, and that makes them dangerous. Why? Because the loudest voices often mask the weakest positions. The insecure need recognition, the uncertain need validation, but the quiet observer, the one saying little, watching everything, that is the person to fear. They are the ones gathering knowledge, positioning themselves, calculating angles. And when they move, it's already too late for anyone else to respond. Power through invisibility means mastering influence without exposure. It's not about barking orders. It's about shaping circumstances so others willingly act in ways that benefit you without realizing they were guided. It's about planting ideas instead of issuing commands. creating conditions that lead people exactly where you want them. When you achieve this, you don't need to dominate through force. You dominate through positioning. You become like water, shaping the environment, flowing around obstacles, finding cracks in the structure, and over time, altering the entire landscape. That is the most subtle and most unstoppable form of power. And finally, there is the weapon everyone is afraid to acknowledge: fear. Most cling to the idea that love is stronger, that winning hearts ensures loyalty. But love is fickle. It fades, it demands constant maintenance, and it turns quickly into resentment if expectations aren't met. Fear, however, lingers. It is quieter, but far more reliable. Not the cartoonish fear of threats or violence, but the deeper kind. The fear of consequences, the fear of testing you, the fear of uncertainty about what you might do. That is the kind of fear that keeps people cautious long after you've left the room. The most enduring form of authority isn't loud, and it isn't reckless. It's quiet, steady, and unforgettable. Real fear doesn't need constant reminders. When people learn your boundaries once, it imprints itself in their mind, shaping the way they act toward you, the way they speak about you, and even the way they think of you in private. That impression lingers. It doesn't need to be reinforced every single day because it's already carved deep into their perception. This kind of influence isn't about bullying, shouting, or trying to make people tremble in your presence. That kind of behavior is amateurish, unstable, and ultimately weak. The kind of fear that truly works, the one that creates lasting influence, is control, professional, and subtle. It isn't terror for the sake of terror. It's the knowledge that crossing you has consequences, and those consequences are non negotiable. Think of someone you respect deeply, someone you wouldn't dare to mock, dismiss, or cross casually. If you look closely, your respect probably carries a thread of fear, not that they would physically harm you, but that you could lose their trust, disappoint them, or cross an invisible line that you know is there. That quiet edge of fear reinforces respect more effectively than love alone ever could. Ruthless people cultivate this presence. They don't chase after everyone's approval. They don't need to be liked to feel secure. What they demand is respect, and respect, when combined with a touch of fear, creates boundaries that people hesitate to test. Niccolo Machiavelli, centuries ago, wrote that people are guided more by immediate consequences than distant promises. Love takes effort to sustain. Trust requires constant nurturing, but fear is instantaneous. It activates the most primitive part of the human mind, the survival instinct. It doesn't ask people to think, it forces them to respond. This is why controlled fear is far more efficient than endless attempts to win people over with niceness. It establishes a standard quickly, and it ensures that people take you seriously without you needing to prove yourself again and again. But make no mistake, controlled fear is not about intimidation for its own sake. It's not about creating enemies, screaming to assert dominance, or making others miserable. True strength lies in clarity, consistency, and unwavering standards. You show people once how you expect to be treated. You communicate your boundaries plainly, calmly, and without unnecessary drama. Then you back those boundaries with action. If someone disrespects you, you don't write a long speech or explode in anger. You act. You enforce the line you've drawn. And from that moment forward, your reputation carries the message everywhere you go. Imagine a colleague who constantly arrives late to meetings. Most people grumble quietly, complain to others, or roll their eyes but tolerate it. Ruthless individuals handle it differently. They address the issue once, directly, without anger. They say, when you're late, it disrupts my schedule. That won't happen again. Simple, clear, final. No raised voice, no rant, just a boundary and a consequence. That one exchange echoes far beyond that single meeting. Others hear about it, and they adjust their own behavior before they ever consider disrespecting you. That's the ripple effect of controlled fear. This is why people who complain endlessly about disrespect rarely fix the problem. They don't act. They hope others will magically change. They bluff about consequences, but never deliver them. And so they remain powerless. The ruthless, however, build reputations precisely because they don't bluff. They act with quiet consistency. They don't need to repeat themselves endlessly. Their name alone carries the weight of their standards. Respect flows from the presence they've built, not from constant confrontation. Respect through boundaries, that's the mantra. When people know your standards are not negotiable, they align themselves accordingly. Now, let's move to the second element of power: unpredictability and silence. Predictability is weakness. The person whose reactions are obvious, whose emotions can be easily triggered, and whose next move is always known is a puppet waiting to be controlled. The ruthless refuse to play that role. They cultivate uncertainty. They never allow themselves to be read too easily. They remain unreadable, and that mystery keeps others cautious. Silence is one of the sharpest tools in this arsenal. Most people cannot tolerate silence. They rush to fill empty space with excuses, explanations, or unnecessary words. In doing so, they give away information. They reveal what bothers them, what scares them, what motivates them. The person who sits calmly, watching and listening, gains an advantage without ever lifting a finger. Silence makes others uncomfortable because it forces them to confront their own doubts. They begin projecting their fears into your silence. They wonder what you're thinking, what you might do, whether you're angry, amused, or indifferent. And that internal chaos gives you control. This ties directly into something I'll call the information advantage. In any interaction, power belongs to the one who holds more knowledge. The moment you speak, you give away clues, your intentions, your emotions, your priorities. But when you remain silent, you gather information instead. The other person keeps talking, revealing more and more, while you remain a closed book. Over time, you end up knowing their weaknesses while they know nothing of yours. Silence, then, is not emptiness, it's strategy. Unpredictability is equally critical. If people always know how you'll respond, they can prepare, manipulate, or corner you. But when your responses vary, sometimes stern, sometimes forgiving, sometimes distant, sometimes warm, people never settle into certainty. They don't know which version of you they'll face, and that uncertainty makes them cautious. It prevents them from taking liberties. It keeps them attentive. Consider how powerful leaders handle conflicts. They don't rush into defensive explanations. They don't reply instantly to accusations. They pause. They allow silence to stretch. They respond only when they're ready, in a way that serves their position, not the timeline imposed on them. That pause alone creates power. It signals control. It forces the other side to adapt while they remain steady. So when someone tries to provoke you, resist the urge to react instantly. Let silence linger. Watch them squirm, watch them reveal themselves, and then, when you choose, respond with calm precision. That single discipline separates those who are controlled from those who control. This brings us to presence and persona. True power isn't only in your actions, but also in the perception surrounding you. People often respond not to what you actually do, but to what they believe you're capable of. Ruthless individuals understand this and construct a deliberate presence that travels ahead of them. They don't scramble for attention, nor do they beg for validation. Their aura alone shapes the room. Building such a presence requires three pillars. The first is consistency. Say what you mean and do what you say. Follow through on your promises. Enforce the standards you set. Over time, people learn that your words are not empty, they carry weight. The second is mystique. Don't reveal everything. Don't explain yourself constantly. Allow room for uncertainty. People fear the unknown far more than they fear the obvious. Leave space for their imagination to work against them. The third is composure. Losing your cool, showing desperation, or begging for acceptance instantly cracks your presence. Emotional stability is armor. When nothing rattles you, when you remain calm under pressure, your presence radiates strength. Machiavelli noted that deception often works because people are so willing to believe appearances. The ruthless take this further, not by lying, but by curating how they are seen. Every action, every word, every silence is intentional. designed to reinforce their persona. Think of it this way. Online, you don't post your worst moments. You craft what others see. Why not treat real life the same way? Presence isn't fake, it's strategy. It's amplifying the qualities you want to be remembered for and aligning them with your actions. Once this presence solidifies, it sustains itself. Stories spread, reputations precede you. New people treat you with respect before they've even met you. That's efficiency. That's presence working when you're not even in the room. Now, the final piece, freedom from emotional control. Emotions are part of being human, but when they dictate your decisions, you become predictable and manipulable. Ruthless individuals don't suppress emotions, they master them. They observe feelings as data points. Anger signals a boundary has been crossed. Fear signals potential danger. Sadness signals loss. Useful information, but not commands. The weak mistake emotions for orders, reacting impulsively. The strong process emotions logically, then choose deliberate responses. Most people are emotional marionettes. Insult them, and they erupt. Threaten them, and they panic. Guilt them, and they fold. They dance on strings anyone can pull. But the emotionally disciplined are immune to such strings. They cannot be baited, shamed, or guilt tripped into actions that don't serve them. That level of control makes them nearly untouchable. Think of the worst decision you ever made. Chances are it came from an emotional reaction. Now think of the best ones, the ones that actually improved your life. They were likely made calmly, rationally, with clarity. That is no accident. Detachment produces better outcomes. Freedom from emotional control doesn't make you robotic. It makes you sovereign over yourself. You still feel anger, compassion, fear, but you choose when and how to act on them. That choice is power. And once you achieve it, you're no longer controlled by others. You're guided only by strategy, clarity, and purpose. So remember these truths. Fear creates respect faster than love. Silence is louder than noise. Unpredictability is stronger than routine. Presence is more powerful than arguments. And emotional mastery is the foundation upon which all other power rests. Drop this affirmation in your mind. Power through clarity, respect through boundaries, silence over noise. True power cannot be touched by fear, shame, or guilt. When a person has already accepted the harshest outcomes, you cannot intimidate them. When they no longer live for approval, you cannot shame them. When they've made peace with their decisions, guilt loses all influence over them. That is the essence of freedom, pure, unshakable freedom. And here's the unsettling truth. This kind of freedom frightens those still imprisoned by their emotions. People bound by fear, validation, and regret are unsettled when they encounter someone who has escaped those chains. The next time you're overwhelmed by emotion, anger, sadness, fear, don't lash out. Don't act impulsively. Pause. Simply notice it. Where in your body is it surfacing? What situation sparked it? What is it asking you to recognize? And most importantly, ask yourself, if I act on this right now, will it benefit my future or sabotage it? Almost every time, reacting on impulse hurts you more than it helps. That short pause, that act of stepping back, is where you wrestle control back from your feelings and give it to your logic. That's where you reclaim dominance over yourself. Write this down. Reason over reaction. Legacy of enduring power. Power isn't defined by a single win, a dramatic outburst, or one victorious moment. Genuine power is endurance. It's a presence that lingers long after you've left the room. The truly ruthless don't chase trophies for today. They build monuments for tomorrow. They don't just win battles. They create systems, reputations, and influence that echo across decades. That's why history remembers the relentless, not because they were the kindest or the fairest, but because they bent reality into their shape. While most people are busy demanding fairness, the ruthless are too busy reshaping the rules. They alter outcomes, carve new paths, and force others to adapt to them. Niccolo Machiavelli grasped this centuries ago. His book, The Prince, written over 500 years back, still unsettles people today. That's not just power, it's timeless influence. But legacies are not built in bursts. They require patience, unwavering consistency, and the discipline to never surrender your core principles. Even when critics mock you, even when the easier road beckons, even when doubt whispers, ask yourself, what do I want whispered about me when I'm not in the room? Not the flattering words people might say to your face, but the raw truth that forms your reputation. Ruthless, calculated, strategic, relentlessly reliable, impossible to manipulate, fearsome to cross. That reputation is not spoken into existence. It's forged action by action. Every choice either builds your legacy or erodes it. There is no neutral ground. Mystery is part of that foundation. The powerful never show their entire hand. They let uncertainty hover. They allow others to wonder, to speculate, to invent stories that become myths. The aura of the unknown amplifies their presence. And then, when necessary, they demonstrate strength, but only in measured doses, never constant, never wasteful, just enough to remind everyone that crossing them is costly. These moments turn into stories. Stories fuel reputation, and reputation matures into legend. Machiavelli once wrote, there is no defense against flattery except by showing that telling you the truth will not offend you. Translation: power lies in facing truth, even when it hurts, even when it shatters illusions. That kind of resilience builds a reputation that acts like armor, drawing the right allies closer and pushing away parasites who waste time. Here's what most fail to grasp: legacy isn't about being remembered fondly, it's about being remembered effectively. Ruthless leaders don't aim for popularity, they aim for permanence. Were history's most powerful loved by everyone? Rarely. Were they respected? Absolutely. Did they alter the game? Without question. You can chase being liked, or you can chase being powerful. If forced to choose, the ruthless abandon approval and seize power. And when they're gone, their fingerprints remain, their names echo, their strategies get studied and imitated. Their very existence alters how others define strength. That's the essence of ruthless legacy. Not being adored, not being understood, but being unforgettable. Every moment you choose logic over emotion, boundaries over weakness, consequences over excuses, you are laying bricks in your legacy. Whether you intend it or not, you are always building one. The question is, are you building intentionally or leaving it to chance? Say this aloud. I am the architect of my legacy. Patience and timing, the invisible weapons. Many confuse ruthlessness with aggression, as if it means charging headfirst into every battle. That's not ruthlessness, that's recklessness. Real ruthlessness is patient. It's the ability to absorb discomfort, endure silence, tolerate delay, and then strike with precision so devastating that one move ends the entire contest. Impatience burns energy. Impulsive people reveal their cards too soon. They expose their strategies before the game even starts. They sprint toward short-term battles while the ruthless wait calmly for the war-winning moment. Patience looks quiet, harmless, even weak, until it's revealed as the sharpest blade. Think of nature. The lion doesn't chase every antelope. It doesn't waste energy in frantic pursuit. It waits. It observes. It conserves its strength. And then, when the exact prey wanders into a vulnerable position, the lion unleashes explosive force. One strike. Game over. That's not cruelty. It's efficiency. Machiavelli hinted at this truth when he wrote that opportunities exist, but seizing them is your responsibility. Timing is everything. The same move taken too early is a failure. Taken too late, it's wasted. But taken at the right moment, it becomes legendary. Patience in practice looks like this. Someone insults you. Your pride demands instant retaliation, but restraint whispers, not yet. Gather intelligence. Identify weaknesses. Let them grow comfortable, careless, unguarded. And when they least expect it, when their shield is down, you respond with precision that leaves no room for recovery. That's not passivity. That's strategy. Consider chess. Novices move pieces constantly, always busy, always reacting. Masters may sit motionless, watching the board, waiting for one fatal misstep. Their silence unnerves opponents. Their stillness is not inactivity, it's calculation. And when they finally move, it decides the game. Life mirrors this. The masses respond to every insult, every provocation, every minor jab. They're constantly moving, but nowhere meaningful. The ruthless sit back, letting others waste energy. And when the decisive moment finally arrives, they act once, with precision, and change everything. Patience demands emotional control. Ego screams to act now. Pride aches for revenge. Fear begs for safety. But patience replies, wait, wait for the moment they won't see coming. Wait for maximum leverage. And when that moment comes, unleash everything with finality. That is the divide between noise and power. Noise reacts constantly, but achieves little. Power waits, prepares, and then executes flawlessly. Most fail because they quit too soon. They crave instant results, and in their rush, they become predictable, exploitable, and weak. The ruthless no power compounds. They accept setbacks if the war will be won. They trade immediate comfort for long term dominance. Say it with me. Patience is precision. Bring it all together. What you fear most about ruthless power is this: it doesn't ask, it doesn't beg for validation, it doesn't play by the rules of politeness. It claims what it desires, not recklessly, but strategically, through silence, patience, and decisive execution. It moves without being seen, influences without needing applause, and commands respect without asking for it. Machiavelli wasn't urging people to be evil. He was urging them to see reality, to stop living in illusions of fairness, to recognize that power governs the world, whether you admit it or not. And in every choice, you either harness that power or bow to it. There is no middle ground. So ask yourself, who currently holds power over your life? Who manipulates your emotions? Who bends your decisions? Who disrespects your boundaries without consequence? These aren't abstract ideas. These are real individuals limiting your freedom. And as long as you deny how power works, you remain their pawn. History answers the only real question. Do these strategies work? Yes. Every empire, dynasty, and leader used them. So the question is not if they work. The question is whether you will learn them or remain vulnerable to those who already have. The world does not pay for fairness. It rewards effectiveness. It doesn't measure your intentions. It measures your impact. It doesn't ask if you're good. It asks if you're strong. And strength is built on strategy, presence, boundaries, patience, and mastery over emotions. The power you fear, you've already met it. The decision now is whether you will master it or be mastered by it. The choice has always been yours. Don't waste it. Affirmations to seal this lesson. Reason over reaction. I am the architect of my legacy. Patience is precision.